Hi folks, we're Sophie and Philippe, two professional chefs and regenerative farmers, on a mission to empower people to grow, cook and preserve nutrient-dense, regeneratively grown, delicious food. We bring you how-to recipes, stories that bridge the gap between the land and our plates, sprinkled with a pinch of humor and lots of grit. After a wildfire burned down much of our farm, and with a baby on the way, we're working hard to rebuild our lives. Join us for some honest cooking, regenerative living and fun farm-to-table courses and retreats. Hi folks, and welcome back to the kitchen. In today's episode we are going to talk about eggplant, also known as aubergine, depending where in the globe you're from. I call them aubergines, but I'm going to try to call them eggplants because who doesn't like the idea of an egg growing on a plant? If you've grown them, the white variety, you understand where that word comes from. In today's episode, I'm going to be sharing 4 recipes with you that you can use as a side dish, a dip, or even as a spread on a sandwich for up to a week, sometimes even 2 if you cover them with a little bit of olive oil. But before we begin, let's talk about this sometimes a little bit faffy plant and some of the tips and tricks that you should know about as a home cook. So this beautiful fruit, when it grows on the plant, actually has different stages that it goes through, and it is ripe for picking when it easily releases from the plant by pulling it up, when it's very shiny and it has a beautiful dark color. When it starts to go matte, it is actually changing the color and the seed production has started, making it bitter and slightly less delicious. Tip number 2, shelf-stable storing of aubergine. A problematic subject. Unfortunately, because this is not an acidic food, these are very hard to pressure can or water can, and they're actually not safe for long storage due to the risk of botulism. Botulism grows at a pH that is higher than 4.4, so anything above that, 4.6, 4.8, 5 and so forth and so on, is not safe for long-term storage. Bummer. This means that we either need to make recipes that have enough acidity in them to bring the pH down to 4.4, which means you can then safely water can or pressure can these and make them shelf stable. This is of course great, but what if you don't like canning, or if you don't like pressure canning for that matter, then these are my freezing tips. The best way to freeze aubergine is cooked, in my opinion, because when you chop them up and you just simply freeze them, they become sort of soggy already and you will never get that nice crisp that you could get on a freshly seared pan-fried slice of aubergine. So my recommendation would be to try to store the pulp. There's 2 ways you can store the pulp, smoked or non-smoked. So the non-smoked version would be simply poking the skin of the aubergine, placing them in the oven at 220 degrees Celsius or 430 Fahrenheit for 40 minutes until the flesh inside is completely cooked. You can then slice it open, scoop it out, and that flesh can be batched up in vacuum bags and then stored in your freezer and taken out whenever you want to make one of today's delicious recipes, for instance. The other way, which has a little bit more character and is great for things like baba ganoush, or if you like to add a smoky depth, and that is by searing them on an open flame, either on your hob or if you have a barbecue going, you could do it like that. Make sure that the skin is completely blistered and black and that the flesh inside is nice and cooked. Once that's done, let them cool down a little bit, remove some of that skin, and then you're left with a smoky, deliciously creamy pulp of aubergine. This again you can batch freeze and then take out as wanted. There you go. These are my tips for you. So the first recipe that we will be making is a twist on the classic Moroccan Matbucha. This is made with sweet bell peppers, smoky paprika, cumin, tomatoes and aubergine. This is a twist because we're not using fresh tomatoes, but we're using passata that I made last week. So let me take you along and let's make a spicy, deeply smoky and delicious dip together. As for the ingredients, what you'll need is 1 cup of olive oil, 2 white onions, 6 cloves of fresh garlic, half a tablespoon of ground cumin, 1 tablespoon of dried garlic powder, 3/4 of a tablespoon of smoked paprika powder, 1/3 of a tablespoon of white pepper, 5 medium eggplants, 4 to 5 piri piri chilies, 1 tablespoon of salt, 9 small red bell peppers, 1½ cup of tomato sauce, 1 cup of red wine vinegar, and 3 tablespoons of unrefined cane sugar. The tools you will need are a cutting board, a knife, a wooden spatula and a wand blender. And as for the pan, I prefer using a large heavy bottom stewing pot. Always check if the fingers are clean, especially if you're filming yourself for the internet. Nobody likes a dirty nail, and I find this extra challenging for us living on a farm or homestead, because you're always with your hands in the soil, aren't you? Step number 1 is chop up your onions nice and fine. I'm going to use 2 onions for this recipe. You see that I'm out of practice with these onions because I'm almost crying here. Voila. I'm going to just pop that into a little bowl. Now there's a lot of debate online on what is the best way to slice open a bell pepper. So let me show you my preferred way. First off, I like to use a serrated knife for this. I chop off the head like so. And then I just take out the core as such. So I've left with this beautiful pepper that could be basically filled. And then here, take out some of the excess seeds. I could just take this off as such. Voila, now, and then I open it like this. The trick here, if you want bell peppers to stay fresh as long as possible after cutting, is to not touch or bruise the inside of the fruit. So what you can do then is, with a serrated knife, just simply create your stripes. These are beautiful for dicing now, like so. As always, if you're trying to be fast, do it as if you're working in a factory, I say. And that means if you have the same action to be repeated more than once, first do that action for all the veggies and then, or fruits, and then move on to the next action for all the fruits. This will really speed up your production process, guys. Finally. After dicing up your onions, bell peppers and chopping up your eggplant, coarsely mince your garlic. Then in the saucepan, add the generous amount of olive oil. This recipe needs the oil to bring out the sweetness during the cooking process. Light the flame and add in the onions first. After a few minutes of glorious sizzling, now add the garlic and stir again. Before the garlic starts to change color, add in the dried spices one by one. Stir them and make sure not to burn them. Add the cubed eggplant and keep stirring well for at least 5 minutes. Then add in the chilies, the salt and the bell peppers. After another 5 minutes of frying, now add in the tomato paste and the vinegar and some water if needed to just submerge the ingredients. To add a note of sweetness, add in 2 to 3 tablespoons of unrefined sugar and let the whole simmer until everything is completely cooked. 25 minutes should be enough. This is smelling delicious. So this is gonna cook for about 20 minutes or so until the aubergine is completely cooked through, and then we're going to puree it, and then our dip is going to be done. But before that, we're always going to taste it, and then we can still season it with some salt, some sugar or a bit of vinegar to balance out the magical balance between fattiness, saltiness, acidity and sweetness, because that is really the key trick to good cooking. All right, so this is now nice and pureed. Let's give it a little taste. Very good. It's sweet, It's spicy, has a hint of acidity there. It's salty enough. This doesn't need anything else. I'm just quickly gonna whip up some crackers so that we can eat this delicious dip. I'm gonna use some sunflower seeds, some chia seeds, and then some little discard of our mother dough. So that means just the excess that you throw away when you're feeding. Or if you don't have sourdough, don't worry about it. You can also just use a mixture of water and flour for this recipe. Into a large bowl, mix together 1.5 cups of sunflower seeds, 1 cup of chia seeds, 2 teaspoons of salt, 1/4 cup of plain flour, 1 teaspoon of black pepper, and then mix well. Into that add 1/2 cup of sourdough discard, 1 cup of water, and then mix until well combined. Work fast as the chia seeds will start to thicken the mixture. Then onto 2 oiled baking sheets or silicone mats, spread out the mixture until it is an even thin layer of about 2 millimeters thick. Bake the crackers on 180 degrees Celsius or 360 Fahrenheit for about 20 minutes until evenly golden brown. For the next 3 dips, I first bulk roasted 10 medium-sized eggplants in the oven at 220 Celsius, 430 Fahrenheit for about 40 minutes. I then halved them and scooped out the flesh. I divided this into 3 equal parts for each dip. This is about 2 cups of flesh per dip. This next dip is super fresh and tangy and really, deliciously powerful in its flavor combination, because we're going to combine mint with lemon, with fermented lemon, lemon lime actually, sorry, with some green peppers and red onion. It's gonna have a bit of a crunch. I absolutely love this dip. It's very Mediterranean inspired. It's a creation that I came up with not that long ago actually, so I'm happy to share this with you. Let's begin. The first step is going to be combining the ingredients into this, and then we're going to blend half of it, and then we're going to introduce a little bit more of texture later on. The other ingredients you will need for this dip are 1 lime or half a lemon, 1 tablespoon of fermented lemon, 1/4 tablespoon of white pepper, 1/4 cup of olive oil, 2 tablespoons of capers, 1 green pepper, half of a red onion, 12 green olives, a sprig of mint, and 2 cloves of garlic and some salt. Start by removing the skins from the lime and then place half of the roasted flesh in a tall mixing glass. Into that add half of the lime, half of your capers, 1/2 teaspoon of fermented lemon, 1/4 teaspoon of white pepper, and the olive oil. Blend it well until smooth and emulsified. Once that is done, pulse blitz the remaining pulp coarsely to leave a little texture to the dip. And then I'm going to introduce the smooth one into the coarse one. And into this I'm going to add the rest of the fermented lemon. Going to grate garlic. Once the garlic is grated, very finely dice your green pepper and half of a red onion. Introduce this into the dip together with half of your green olives, also very finely diced. Almost there. The next thing is to pit a lot of green olives, or if you have them unpitted, that's easier of course. And then some capers. Mix that well and then add in the finely chopped rest of the lime and mint. Season to taste with salt, and then it's ready to store in the fridge before serving. This dip is best served cold. Decorate it with some sliced green peppers, fresh olives and capers, and a drizzle of very nice extra virgin olive oil. All right, next up is our goat's cheese, thyme and honey dip, and it's going to be super tangy because we're going to use a chèvre roll for it. And it's super simple, it's just combining a lot of things. The only thing we'll need to do on the stove is actually fry off some onions. The ingredients you'll need for this dip are 2 cups of roasted eggplant flesh, 2 medium-sized white onions, a handful of walnuts roasted at 160 Celsius or 320 Fahrenheit for about 15 minutes to really bring out that toasty, nutty flavor, 2 teaspoons of fresh thyme, 1 roll of chèvre goat's cheese, 5 tablespoons of yogurt, salt and black pepper to taste, honey, and optionally also some delicious beetroot and red wine reduction. Link to the recipe here. First, start by slicing the onions in half moons for frying until they are golden. This needs to be done in some olive oil on a low heat for about 15 minutes, stirring regularly when they start to discolor to prevent burning. I'm going to add in all of our aubergine. Oops! Help! Plonk! Then add in a little more than half of the goat's cheese roll. To add a little acidity to the dish, add the yogurt. And then my fresh thyme. I love the smell of thyme. Season with half a tablespoon of salt and half a tablespoon of black pepper. I'm gonna mix it a little bit first so that the cheese is not the first thing that the Magi mix is gonna hit, otherwise it's gonna get stuck in the blades. And of course, don't forget to look super serious whilst doing this. This is essential to increase that frown crease between the brows, you know, to enhance your look of wisdom over time. Lekker. Needs a tiny bit more salt. This already tastes amazing as is, but we're gonna decorate this with a little bit of fried onions, some roasted walnuts, and then a little bit of this beetroot reduction and honey. So it's going to be an experience in the scoop that is going to elevate this even further. But it should be quite salty to counter the sweetness that is going to be the syrup and the honey. Last but not least, we're going for a miso soy sauce agave syrup, sort of sweet and savory umami boosting bomb. It's going to be delicious. It's also super simple. First, I'm going to heat up a miso and soy sauce agave syrup. Then I'm going to mix that into my base. And then I'm going to decorate it with sesame and these crunchy onions. It's going to be... In a small saucepan, combine 1 heaped tablespoon of dark miso paste, 2 shots of soy sauce, 1 shot of rice vinegar, 2 tablespoons of agave syrup, and 1 roughly chopped up onion, a handful of garlic cloves, and about 2 tablespoons of ginger root. Add enough water to cover and then place it on a medium heat. Let's mix this together. I've got my pulp. Now I'm going to take the solid parts from the syrup that I'm making, or the miso sauce, And I'm gonna blend those in first. Then I'm gonna add sauce until I like the flavor of it. And then I'm going to plate. Let's have a little taste. I don't have any spring onions in the garden, but if I had them, then I would put some coriander and spring onions on there. I might decorate it with a little bit of green pepper, just because it's nice to have a bit of green on here in the end. All right, let's plate. For extra texture and visual improvement, I used some chopped green peppers, crispy onions and some sesame seeds, and I reduced the miso syrup until it had a molasses consistency to drizzle on top. I ended up using the fried onions I intended for the goat's cheese, as I accidentally forgot to add those, which turned out as a great unexpected improvement on the dip. Those dips were absolutely delicious, guys, and I hope you try them at home and let me know how it went. If you have any questions about any of them, drop them in the comments below. And if you want to check out more farm-to-table recipes, check out this playlist. Or if you want to get more into the preserving side of things, check out this playlist. Also, just a quick reminder, you can always join us for on-site retreats and cooking events. I'll leave those in the description in the link below. See you on the next one. The Farming Chefs, peace out.